And we're live.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Anyway, magandang umaga, magandang tanghali, magandang hapon, magandang gabi sa lahat ng mga Pilipino kung nasaan man kayong panig sa mundong ito, dahil ang Talakayan 3K Online ay napapanood at napapakinggan sa YouTube, Facebook at talakayan3k.live. Today, we are very, very lucky to have a panelist na talagang napaka-importante ito sila ngayon sa sitwasyon natin. She is the director ng Department of Social Welfare and Development, si Director Irene Dumlao. So, Ma'am Irene, thank you for spending time with us. I know that you're very busy. Maraming tumatawag ngayon sa DSWD. We know for a fact, everybody knows that the DSWD took center stage during the outbreak of the pandemic. Especially nung namigay na ng mga SAP, there were a lot of questions. But today we will be clarified by Ma'am Irene kung ano talaga ang what happened in 2020 at saka kung ano ang outlook ng DSWD for 2021 considering that the pandemic is still with us. Ma'am Irene, you can start your opening statement, ma'am, please.
Magandang umaga po, Sir Chito and Sir John. And of course, magandang umaga sa lahat po ng sumusubaybay ng inyong programa. The Department of Social Welfare and Development is very honored to be invited dito po sa inyong programa and to share with our stakeholders and to the public what the department has been doing for the past years in addressing the needs of our clients or our beneficiaries. As we are celebrating our 70th founding anniversary, the DSWD would like to thank all our partners who have been instrumental in implementing the various programs and services of the department amid the pandemic. With the support and the trust extended or given to us, the DSWD enjoys the highest approval rating among all offices in the executive branch. Ito po ay base sa pinakahuling ulat ng Pulse Asia, ulat sa Bayan Report, na kung saan ipakita nga po that the DSWD enjoys the highest approval rating. At sabi ko nga po, as we celebrate our 70th founding anniversary and as we look forward to more years of serving the public, we commit. We are inspired actually and motivated by this distinction, by this recognition to improve on our services, improve on the delivery of the various programs and services of the department to the poor, the vulnerable, and the marginalized. And we hope that we will be able to stand to the expectations, especially of our stakeholders, in delivering maagap at mapagkalingang serbisyo sa mamamayang Pilipino, serbisyo pong walang puwang sa katiwalian. Good morning, everyone.
Thank you. So, John, You have anything to ask Ma'am Irene, John?
Not at the moment. I'm interested to hear what's in store for our kababayan from the DSWD.
Okay. Well, anyway, who could contest the statement of Ma'am Irene that the DSWD has the highest approval rating? Well, they never got distracted despite all the criticisms that, especially during the SAP. Now, can you tell us, Mama Irene, what was the biggest challenge of the DSWD during the outbreak of the pandemic? Because you took center stage among all the executive departments.
Yes, Sir Chito. We are all aware that the DSWD is the lead in the social welfare and in the we are the lead in the social welfare and development, and that one of the biggest challenges of the department is actually related to our critical role of assisting the national government and the local government units in mitigating the adverse effects of the COVID-19,
Mhm.
particularly to the poor, the vulnerable, and the disadvantaged individuals and families and communities. And of course, in support of the national government's social amelioration measures, addressing, of course, the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. The DSWD implemented, apart from the social amelioration program, our existing programs and services, such as the assistance to individuals in crisis situation, the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program,
Mhm, mhm.
the Sustainable Livelihood program, the social pension for indigent senior citizens, supplementary feeding program, the augmentation support for the local government units as part of our disaster response operations. So, as you can see, we have implemented all of this despite the pandemic, despite the threats of COVID-19. And the social amelioration program, for one, was by far the biggest cash assistance in terms of coverage and amount in the history of the country. So this is the first time that we implemented such a big program with
Mhm,
such
mhm.
big budget. Of course, there were a lot of challenges. One of which is identifying the target beneficiaries in the soonest possible time.
Mhm.
Of course, that was not an easy task. And during the implementation, the challenges that we encountered were the threat of COVID-19, not
Mhm.
only to our beneficiaries, but also to our SAP implementers. We also had challenges in terms of reaching out to our beneficiaries in geographically isolated and
Mhm.
disadvantaged areas, such as island municipalities and coastal towns. There was also the security threat on SAP implementers in conflict-affected areas.
Mhm. Mhm.
And in order to address all of this, we coordinated with the Armed Forces of the Philippines, the Philippine
Mhm.
National Police, the Philippine Coast Guard for the provision of air and naval assets for the transportation and safety of our
Mhm.
personnel in payout venues. Likewise, we have coordinated with the local government units in identifying our beneficiaries, likewise in validating the list of the families enlisted in terms of their eligibility. And likewise, we have coordinated with the LGUs for the distribution mechanisms. These are the processes that we had to ensure that are compliant with the IATF regulations. And aside from this, no, sabi ko nga po, there was also the threat of COVID-19 to our own personnel.
Mhm.
So, in fact, some of our personnel have been infected with the virus. Some had to pass on, in fact, and it was very difficult for the department. But nonetheless, we had to continue. We had to deliver. We had to perform our mandate in order to serve the most affected members of our community.
Okay, thank you, Mom. The pandemic outbreak actually started during the first quarter of 2020. So basically, on board na kayo sa mga programs niyo sa DSWD. How were your major programs affected by the COVID-19 pandemic? Because eventually, most of them na-distract na sidetrack yun. So how were your other major programs affected by the pandemic?
Yes, tama po kayo, Sir Chito. But with the pandemic, the DSWD continued to develop policies and implement program and services, even during the implementation of the community quarantine. We must admit, however, that the achievement of performance targets by DSWD for its regular progress or programs and projects was impeded or delayed given the fact that even our personnel who deliver the needed services also had to comply with health protocols involving restrictions under the declarations of the community quarantine. In fact, we had to do or recalibrate the strategies or the processes that we had been doing for the past years, particularly in the conduct of our payouts. So if the distribution of the social pension for indigent senior citizens were usually done during or in payout centers or in wherein we had to gather our beneficiaries, what we had to do was to go house to house. Even with the community restrictions, we had to comply. So somehow there were some delays encountered, but again, it did not stop us to deliver the needed services to our clients.
So
I
what's
just get a question about
okay, John.
the house to house. You base it on a certain master list of recipients. How did you find did you find any discrepancies on the master list, and how did you go on the updated that so that the next round of relief everyone will get their share?
Well, I'm not talking only about the social pension for indigent senior citizens, but I would like to involve all programs that we have been conducting payouts. As we were doing house to house or manual payouts, we also were validating the list together with the local government units to ensure that the recipients or those that who will receive this financial assistance are indeed those who are qualified and based on the existing policies are eligible to receive the assistance from the government.
Okay, so but yung inputs nyo, ma'am, would be coming from the local government units. I mean, the names, the beneficiaries. So how do you validate that these are not political proteges ng isang it's not the list is not politicized? I mean,
well, for the social amelioration program, we worked with the Department of Interior and local government. Also, we made certain arrangements wherein the local government units were encouraged to post the list of identified beneficiaries in conspicuous places in their respective barangays. In that manner, we have involved the entire community in validating the list.
okay. But what's really the protocol, ma'am? Because while the national government has its guidelines, the local government units, some local government units also provide their own guidelines through their resolutions. Which of which prevails?
Well, on the implementation of the SAP, the DSWD issued guidelines for the identification of beneficiaries, and we have communicated this to the local government units as the reference in identifying who the beneficiaries will be. And likewise, in our guidelines, it was indicated that the validation process would be conducted involving not only the local government units, but also the national government agencies. Considering, of course, that for one, the DSWD has an existing list of poor. This is the National Household Targeting System for Poverty Reduction, or the Listahanan. And also, we have this database of Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino Program beneficiaries and other database from other government agencies, because for DOLE, they have the TUPAD, wherein they have a list of their beneficiaries. Likewise, for the Department of Agriculture, may database din po sila. So we have cross-matched this existing list to ascertain that there would be no duplication in the availment of emergency subsidies. Likewise, this is to ensure that the recipients are really eligible, are considered poor.
Yeah. Ikaw, Jan, any question? Another question, Jan, kay Ma'am Irene? Do you have another question?
No,
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Anyway, there's been some concerns, especially from the marginalized, the seniors, especially those na pag may tinatanggap na pension kahit katiting lang, they yung some local government units claim that you're no longer entitled because you're a recipient already of a pension, whether it is the amount is realistic or not. So what is really the protocol, the guidelines of the DSWD on that matter? Anong threshold? Anong threshold?
Well, Sir Chito, ito po ba para sa SAP or para sa
SAP.
social pension?
Well, we're talking about the SAP now because it's affecting mostly the poor. Kasi actually, ang DSW naman is there to help the marginalized, to help the poor, di ba?
Yes. Well, based on the consultation that we had with our stakeholders, ito pong mga low-income families na meron pong members who are senior citizens who are considered as head of the family and are receiving naman po pension that is not greater than the maximum subsidy allowed per region. Kasi halimbawa po, for the SAP, ang maximum subsidy for the National Capital Region is 8,000 pesos.
Okay.
So if the head of the family who is a senior citizen and is receiving pension, ang tinatanggap po niya is not more than the 8,000 maximum subsidy as pension, sila po ay eligible for the program. Especially so if sila po yung head of the family and other members of the family naman po ay walang pinagkukuhanan ng pagkakakitaan sa panahon po ng pandemya.
So
when eligibility is the full amount.
Yeah, exactly.
Balance.
Yeah.
Yes, Sir John. So if they're eligible, matatanggap po nila yung 8,000 pesos, which is the maximum subsidy per region. That is for NCR.
I'd just like to clarify or say, kung hindi aabot sa threshold na 8,000, halimbawa yung pension ng isang senior ay only 5,000, how much will the DSWD subsidize? Would the entire 8,000 or the remaining 3,000?
They will receive po the 8,000 pesos. The entire family will receive po the 8,000 pesos.
Okay. So there you go, seniors, kasi maraming seniors. At saka, halimbawa, ma'am, so ang isang criteria doon, not a single one in the family should be an earner. Only,
yes, Chito. And that the senior citizen is considered the head of the family. Ibig sabihin po, all members of the family are actually dependent doon sa kinikita lamang po ng senior citizen.
Okay. Now, as you were saying earlier that you had other programs like DOLE, like other programs. So, yan may mga may mga income din yun. So, ganun din ang guidelines niyo. I mean, if they're not receiving the threshold of 8,000, you also provide them the subsidy of 8,000.
Okay. Halimbawa po yung family po has a member who is a beneficiary of that DOLE Tupad. So, dun sa DOLE Tupad, if I'm not mistaken, 5,000 pesos po yung tinatanggap nila.
Okay.
So, based doon sa ating Joint Memorandum Circular number 1, the DSWD will provide a top-up. So kung if the family receive 5,000 from DOLE because kabilang po sa formal sector yung isa pong anak, dadagdagan po iyon ni DSWD ng 3,000 for NCR. We're citing NCR here as an example. So if the family receive 5,000, DSWD will provide a top-up of 3,000 to meet the 8,000 po na maximum subsidy.
So how did the department arrive at the 8,000 threshold na ito yung living in a standard subsidy na ibibigay? When was this computed? Is it computed based on the current prices that we now have?
Well, when we computed the maximum subsidy per region, we consulted our economic managers. So ginamit po yung minimum wage per region, and then kinompute po yon as the amount needed to sustain the basic needs of a family in that particular area. So doon po tayo arrive doon sa subsidy per region for.
Is that regardless of the number of members in the isang household? I mean, for a household that will have...
Tatanong ko sana yan kanina eh. Yung
For a
kung ano,
household
how
that
do you
we have
define a household?
household.
Yes.
Halimbawa, isang household na 8 members, then you have another household that meron lang 3 or 4. Are they
Or
going to stay the same
multi-family
situation?
household. Kasi
Yes.
pwedeng
Yeah.
isang bahay pero 3 pamilya yung nag-share sa bahay na yun eh.
Tama po, Sir John and Sir Shito, no? Ang unit of assistance po natin for the social amelioration program is family. Yan po. So kung meron ang family, meron pong nanay, tatay, meron pong mga anak. Tinitingnan po natin yung 5 in a household, in a family. So kung meron pong 2 o 3 pamilya sa isang household, then kinakailangang i-assess po yung bawat pamilya. So dapat po, bigyan natin ng social amelioration card form ang bawat pamilya sa loob ng isang tahanan para po ma-assess natin if sila ay qualified based on the existing guidelines.
Okay.
Yeah.
So far, how far have you gone, ma'am, yung DSWD in the disbursement of the SA? Pero itong kasi yung unang salvo. Na ano ba yon? Were you able to disburse all the funds intended for the SAP para makatulong?
Yes.
And ilan ang do you have mas ballpark, but it's better if we have an exact figure. How many Filipinos were able to avail of the SAP in total, ma'am?
Okay. We are all aware that in the implementation of the social amelioration program, that is of course covered or mandated by Bayanihan to heal us.
Bayanihan.
Okay? So doon po sa first tranche ng social amelioration program, the DSWD was able to disburse almost 99.3 billion pesos to
Okay.
over 17.6 million family beneficiaries. Yun po yung ating na-distribute for the second tranche. And then for the second tranche naman po of SAP, the DSWD has already provided more than 90.7 billion through manual and digital payouts to over 14.5 million family beneficiaries for the second tranche based po doon sa report as of January 25 of this year.
Yung second tranche, ma'am, would it be a follow-through dun sa mga unang beneficiaries? Is it second tranche or different set of beneficiaries po yun, ma'am?
Okay. For the second tranche ng SAP, majority are beneficiaries also or recipients ng first tranche. However, nagkaroon lang po ng pagbabago in terms of identifying sino yung magiging recipients na. This is because the executive office or the office of the president through the Office of Executive Secretary Medaldea issued a guidelines no identifying noong pong May 2020 ano na lang yung areas under ECQ. So that includes National Capital Region, the Calabarzon, the province of Pangasinan, the province of Benguet, Iloilo, Cebu, Davao, Zamboanga City, and Bacolod, some areas under ECQ as of May 2020. It also includes Region 3 except the province of Aurora. So sina lamang po yung mga beneficiaries na nakatanggap na ng second tranche. But most of them have received already their first tranche. However, we would like to mention that before we distributed the second tranche, nagkaroon po tayo ng validation of the first tranche beneficiaries, wherein we were able to identify duplicates. Duplicates meaning sila po ay nakatanggap under the 4Ps or existing beneficiaries po pala sila ng 4Ps. Second, sila po ay nakatanggap under DOLE or under the Department of Agriculture or have also received from the small business wage subsidy implemented by the SSS. So sila po ay natanggal doon sa ating mga beneficiaries and were no longer entitled to receive the second tranche of the SAP.
Tanong ko lang, ma-identify you ba from those irregularities kung they are intentional or not intentional?
Well, Sir John, marami po tayong beneficiaries actually and nag-voluntary those who voluntarily returned the amount that they received in excess of what they were entitled to. So dun po, no,
Sana
ikinatutuwa.
all.
Yes.
But
Sa
but the but
beneficiaries
but
naman
this
po,
but this list actually came from the local government units.
It's a hybrid eh. Maraming sources sila eh.
yes, for the SAP po, particularly for the first tranche, we worked with the local government units in identifying po the beneficiaries.
So, what were the sanctions na in-enforce ng DSWD on airing local government social development works? Do you have control over local social development workers?
Okay, for the local social welfare development officers, the DSWD po kasi is a devolved agency.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yung mga LSWDOs, yung ating pong CSWDO or the MSWDOs, these are personnel of the local government units. The DSWD provides technical assistance and resource augmentation to them to capacitate and enable them in efficiently and effectively implementing social program or social development programs of the government. Ngayon po, doon sa mga issues that some local government units allegedly erred in the implementation of the SAP, we have worked with or we have coordinated with the Department of Interior and local government units.
Okay.
Sila po yung jurisdiction or the authority over the local government units. So when we received some reports of alleged irregularities, in-endorse po natin iyan sa DILG for them to conduct the necessary investigation. So yun po yung ating naging participation in ensuring that there would be no irregularity in the implementation of SAP.
So far, ma'am, even just the ballpark figure, ilan ang mga cases na nangyari na involved in local government units na that were all endorsed to DILG, and what happened at the DILG level?
Oh, Sir Chito, I'm sorry, but I don't have the figures right now. But certainly, I'm certain that these numbers or these reports that we have received were properly endorsed naman po to the DILG. And based on the reports that came out, there were some local government unit officials who have been charged because of the alleged irregularities nga po in the implementation of SAP.
Okay. What additional safety nets are you imposing now? Remember that 2021 is mostly we're in pre-election mode. So what other safety nets are you enforcing to ensure that whatever program ng DSWD are not politicized by the local government units?
Well, for 2021, the DSWD is gearing towards the recovery stage, wherein most of our programs and services are really aimed at supporting the improvement of the level of health, or supporting our goal to improve the level of well-being of our beneficiaries. We work hand in hand with the local government units in order for us to achieve this objective. Likewise, continuous po yung coordination natin with the local social welfare development officers. Ano po, as I've mentioned, we continue to provide technical assistance and resource augmentation so that mas magiging maayos pa yung implementation of the various programs and services of the department. Of course, with this coordination that we have, we are strengthening also all the mechanisms that we have to ensure that these programs will not be influenced by some political actors who have, of course, this.
We know. Okay. But anyway, ma'am, can you give us a broader picture of what are we going to expect in 2021 from the DSWD? Anong core programs nyo ngayon for 2021 to cope with the pandemic?
Well, Sir Chito, of course, nandyan pa rin po yung Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program. So, ang target pa rin natin dyan is to cover 4.4 million households. Of course, we really want to focus doon sa pag-invest pa rin natin sa education and health of our children beneficiaries. Likewise, we also have the Sustainable Livelihood Program, wherein we intend to continue providing livelihood support to our poor families in order for them to attain the necessary assets to maintain livelihood activities that will support their recovery from this pandemic. Likewise, nandyan din po yung Kalahi Seeds. Nandyan din naman po yung ating mga protective programs, kagaya ng assistance to individuals in crisis situation, yung ating supplementary feeding program. We also have the social pension for indigent senior citizens, which we are continuously implementing. Patuloy rin po yung ating mga augmentation assistance sa mga local government units in order for them to address the immediate needs of their constituents. And aside from these programs, the DSWD is also looking at how we would be able to capacitate the local government units in implementing nga po itong mga programs and services. We want to lead in capacitating the local social welfare development officers so they could grow, no? Kumbaga parang we help na lang mamang po itong mga local government units para sila na po mismo yung talagang mag-implement ng mga programa at serbisyo para sa kanilang pong mga nasasakupan, especially with the implementation na nga po of the Mandanas ruling. Likewise, the DSWD for 2021 is now adopting itong sulong DSWD recovery plan, which will provide more responsive and appropriate social protection programs and services to people affected by COVID-19 and victims of natural and human-induced emergencies. So this plan will actually serve as an interim strategy that will ensure that the department will operate with the context nga po of what I've earlier mentioned na yung Mandanas ruling, and of course, under the context of the new normal.
So anyway, you mentioned earlier about indigent seniors. This is a topic closest to my heart. At saka there's really a lot of concerns from the elderly community. How do you classify an indigent elderly senior? Does it mean that he has now zero income? Because, you know, may mga senior dyan na ang pension magkano na lang. It's not even enough to pay for their maintenance cost of medicines. So, are they not considered indigent by the government?
Well,
I mean, you have to have zero income to be indigent. I mean, you should be dead.
yes. Well, base po doon sa batas, no, na sinusunod natin for the implementation of the social pension for indigent senior citizens, nakalagay po, it was specifically defined that the senior citizen qualified under the social pension for indigent senior citizen ay yung pong 60 years old pataas,
Yes.
frail or sickly, wala pong tinatanggap na pension from the GSIS, SSS, and other insurance companies. Wala rin pong tinatanggap na suporta mula sa kanyang immediate family members. And most importantly, wala po siyang source of income. So ito po yung mga senior citizens na pinaprioritize po muna ng batas for this particular program. So based on the based on the coordination natin with the local government units, particularly the Office of the Senior Citizens Affairs, ina-identify po natin itong mga senior citizens po na ito.
But will the elderly community expect an amendment or at least a revision or a change in that kind of policy? Because we have to be realistic nowadays. If you're receiving only a pension of 2,000 or whatever, it's not even enough to pay for your maintenance medicines. And again, at isa pa, pag sinabi mong indigent at saka walang tinatanggap na supporters from the family for any member, how are you able to validate if even that elderly is in good terms with his children and they're helping them?
Yes, Sir Chito. Actually, we are one with you, no, doon po sa nabanggit nyo. In fact, continuous nga po yung ating coordination with our legislators so that we could cover more individuals or more senior citizens for this program. Second po, the DSWD continues to conduct the validation. Gaya nga po no, nabanggit ko earlier as we were starting with the program. We conduct validation wherein we go to the houses of the senior citizens. Tinitignan din natin, no, there are observable indicators naman po. Likewise, we coordinate or we validate through third persons in order to ascertain that wala po talagang silang tinatanggap na assistance from their immediate family members o wala po talaga silang source of income. Likewise, in the previous years, we entered into an agreement with SSS or GSIS wherein i-validate po natin o i-cross-match din natin sa kanilang existing database itong mga pangalan ng ating mga senior citizens to really determine that they are not receiving pensions from these agencies.
Tsaka the worst thing, ma'am, is that one of the most affected sectors ngayon of the pandemic are the seniors and the young kasi they're not allowed to go out. And kahit ang senior na alam mo naman ang mahirap na senior, survival yan, it's a survival instinct. You'll have to go out pag didiskarte ka. But with the policy ngayon that not allowing seniors to go out of their homes, how can they survive with that kind of, no? Tapos, di ba?
Yes,
so
sir.
I think it's really about time that the government should seriously look at the situation of the elderly. Because hindi pare-parehas ang sitwasyon, ma'am, eh.
I agree with you, Sir Chito. Kung kaya nga po, aside from this particular program, ano po, the DSWD continues to provide ito nga pong mga family food packs to the local government units para po ma-address nga yung pangangailangan ng ating mga seniors who are not able to go out of their respective homes. Likewise, patuloy rin po yung implementation of the assistance to individuals in crisis situation. So our senior citizens with immediate medical needs ay pinupuntahan po ng ating mga social workers, ina-assess po yung kanilang pangangailangan so that we could provide the necessary assistance or intervention. Like, halimbawa, kailangan po nila ng gamot o kailangan po nilang magpa-check up, then we extend our services.
So how can they avail of that services, ma'am? Kasi alam mo naman, karamihan ng senior lalo yung mga mahiyain na, yung mga iba, tapos those who are not really that highly educated, reluctant sila lumapit. So, do you go, meron kayong, how will they avail of the services pala? How can they avail of the services?
Well, from our experience, no, Sir Chito, meron pong mga members of the family na who are able, healthy, na pumupunta po sa aming mga opisina at nagdadala po noong mga medical abstract o yung mga reseta ng gamot at sila po yung nagpo-process para po mabigyan natin ng assistance itong ating mga senior citizens. Some concerned local officials naman po tumatawag po sa ating opisina through our different field offices para ipag-abot na may ganito pong senior citizen na nangangailangan ng tulong. And our social workers naman po go on field, pinupuntahan mismo sila at ina-assess yung kanilang situation so that, as I've earlier mentioned, the necessary assistance or intervention will be extended to them. So in this process, we are able to reach out to our senior citizens who are indeed most vulnerable in this time.
But tanong lang ako, sa how these are being done. Yung frontliners po ninyo, kumusta naman po ang kanilang safety protocols, safety trainings, whatever that? Kasi syempre, una is they have to protect themselves at saka they have to also protect yung mga beneficiaries. Kasi mamaya hindi nila alam na karga-karga na nila yung virus, whatever. So, kumusta po yun?
Tama po kayo, Sir John, and thank you very much for raising that concern. The DSWD continues to provide ito pong kinakailangan na mga equipments, no? Yung mga PPEs, the face masks, the face shields, and yung mga supplements to all our frontliners. Nagkakaroon rin naman po tayo sumusunod rin naman po tayo doon sa minimum safety protocols as set nga po by the DOH and the IATF. Likewise, nagkakaroon rin naman po tayo ng pag-check sa ating mga personnel para matiyak po natin that as you have earlier mentioned, na tayo rin naman po ay nailalayo mula sa banta ng COVID-19. So we are doing this to ensure that we also protect our beneficiaries. In fact, in our office, regular po yung ating pag-sanitize ng ating mga opisina. Naglagay rin po tayo, like for the crisis intervention unit, naglalagay din po tayo ng mga safety equipment, safety mechanisms to ensure that we are not contacting or contracting the virus. Likewise, pag tayo rin naman po ay nag-field. So all the necessary assistance are being extended to our personnel, recognizing, of course, the task or the enormous task that we are doing for our beneficiaries.
Okay. So I'm just concerned, ma'am, because sabi mo nga kanina, you explained that the DSW function has been devolved. It's entirely bola ng local government unit yon. But I know for a fact that there are many instances na yung services are being politicized by the local executives. So has the DSWD ever considered putting up a hotline that they can connect directly, especially yung mga seniors, mga marginalized seniors? Kasi wala, they're helpless. You go to the local government unit, the local government official, if you're not their follower, tapos ka. I-dribble yung complaint mo. So, has the DSWD ever considered putting up a hotline that at least you get FYI man lang for your information? If I am a marginalized senior na hindi ako kakampi ni mayor at saka single out ako, I'm being sidelined yung mga complaints ko, wala na. I mean, you're at the end, the buck stops there pagka ganung setup na devolved eh. Will the DSWD even consider putting up a hotline for this kind of thing?
Well, yes, Sir Chito, the DSWD has set up our hotline numbers, not only dito po sa central office, but also sa iba't ibang field offices po around the country. Meron po tayong pwedeng tawagan ng ating mga beneficiaries. Ito po yung 16545. Likewise, meron rin po tayong mga cellphone numbers na pwede po nilang tawagan. They may access it through our website or through our Facebook account, yung pong official Facebook account of the Department of Social Welfare and Development. So, hindi lamang, we recognize naman po that there's a widespread adoption of the social media.
Yes.
They could actually send messages through our Facebook account. Likewise, sabi ko nga po, nandun rin yung ating mga hotline numbers, not only within the central office, but also dun sa mga field offices na pinakamalapit po sa kanila. So with these platforms in place, they could easily get in touch with us. Likewise, our field offices has set up satellite offices sa mga iba't ibang provinces and municipalities para po mas mapalapit tayo sa ating pong mga kababayan.
Okay, good. Ma'am, another concern lang. Alam mo na itong pandemic, while everybody's focused on the economic aspect of dito sa naging impact, the mental health, what is the DSW doing about the mental health issues, especially on the elderly, na you feel hostage, you feel confined to your home, you cannot even go out. Now, if you live in a hostile household, patay ka. Yung mga anak mo, alam mo naman, it's a reality. We have to accept it. That there are elderly who are living with their children and yet they are not in good terms. In fact, at the worst situation, they're abused.
Yes, Sir Chito.
So what's the program of this WD on the social mental aspect of the elderly on that one?
Well, dalawa po yan, Sir Chito. Of course, we are taking cognizance. Malaking bagay po talaga, malaking issue rin po itong tinututukan natin in addressing the mental state or mental issues that are being faced by not only by our beneficiaries but also our personnel. So within the DSWD, meron po tayong sinet up through our Human Resource Management and Development Service na parang helpline for our personnel. Lalong-lalo na po yung ating mga frontliners who are really dealing with our beneficiaries who are facing such situation. Ano po? So ito po yung tinatawag nating caring for the caregivers or yung mga carers po natin within the department. So meron nga po tayong mga social workers na kinakausap po sila, no? Meron din po tayong mga medical experts who provide the necessary assistance to them. Now, para naman po dun sa ating mga beneficiaries, one of our bureaus is actually focusing efforts on that together with the local government unit. In fact, meron po tayong mga interagency committees na nabubuo para po matutukan natin yung mga concerns in the ground, one of which nga po yung mga mental case issues. Together with the, kung halimbawa po, no, may mga issues involving mga domestic violences, rini-report natin yan sa mga LGU, sa LSWDO, or dun sa ating mga barangay peace and order council, so that mai-report po ng maayos, no, yung gantong mga cases, and then the DSWD will come in to provide appropriate intervention naman po to our clients.
So, do you have a ballpark, kasi ballpark figure yan, ilan na po ang nag-avail ng mga services na ganyan from the elderly community, for instance?
Well, Chito, I don't have the figures right now, I'm sorry, but we can provide you naman po later on, no, with the figures that we have dun po sa ating bureau.
Don't be surprised, ma'am, why I'm too much engrossed on the elderly, because this is the sector, this is the marginalized sector that is really ngayon nahihirapan eh. Because una, their mobility is restricted. And again, if, as I was saying, a lot of elderly are living with their children, but they practically live in a hostile household.
Yes, I totally support your cause, sir. Talaga pong tinitignan din natin itong sector na ito because they are most vulnerable during this particular time. And yes, the necessary assistance should be extended or should be provided to them. Pero yun nga po yung we would like to stress, no, kinakailangan po talaga rin nating i-assess yung mga situation kasi case to case din po ito. Ano yung pangangailangan ng isang senior citizen from another might be different. Ano po?
Yeah, of course.
Towards the situation ng bawat pamilyang kinabibilangan po nila.
Yeah.
So,
compounded din yan kasi ito ng since hindi sila pwedeng lumabas, that means less ang physical activity nila.
Yes.
So mas vulnerable sila na magkasakit dahil wala sila exercise eh. So I have some friends or parents ng friends na ganun nangyari dahil hindi na nakakapaglakad-lakad and eventually nag-deteriorate and wala na sila ngayon.
Well, actually dyan, ang problema nga dyan eh, do you have any reported cases of suicide among the elderly? Suicide does not necessarily mean jumping out of the window. It can be not taking your medicines anymore because you want to get rid of life. Or simply, hindi ka nakakain because it's your way of parang showing giving up hope. So, meron ba kayong mga reported cases ng ganyan, no?
Well, Sir Chito, we don't have a report right now on those cases. Pero ang gusto lang po naming i-emphasize as DSWD comes in to provide the necessary intervention, tayo po ay nakikipag-ugnayan or we work hand in hand, not only with the local government units, but also with other national government agencies such as the Department of Health and private organizations na meron pong expertise in addressing the needs po, no? Particularly nga po on the assistance for the senior citizens. Pero sabi nga po natin, napaka-importante po talaga yung pag-provide natin ng psychosocial interventions, especially during this period.
At saka another cause yung mga psycho problems is really the economic aspect of wala ka ng pera, hindi ka pa welcome sa isang wala kang makain. So is there a possibility that the DSWD would push for an amendment on a legislative amendment or whatever na at least yung kanyang sinasabi na to be an indigent senior, wala ka talagang matatanggap because the reality is even 5,000 nowadays is not even enough it's not even the poverty level salary, household income, monthly household income. Di ba?
Yes. Opo, Sir Chito. Kaya nga po, sabi ko rin kanina, patuloy po yung pamamahagi natin ng ibang services for our senior citizens. Hindi nga lamang po yung dun sa social pension for indigent senior citizens, hindi lamang po yung ating assistance to individuals in crisis situation or yung ating provision nga po of the family food packs, but also yung provision po of the necessary psychosocial interventions. Gayon din po yung ating referral to the appropriate offices or units that could provide them more with additional interventions. Dahil tama po kayo, Sir Chito, talagang kailangan po nila ng tulong, lalong-lalo na nga po at ganito po yung kinakaharap nating sitwasyon.
Yung aming House Representative of the Senior Citizen, how is he coordinating with the DSWD on the aspect of the kasi meron kami party list, di ba, senior citizens sa ESLD. Is he closely coordinating with you, the DSWD, on concerning the issues affecting the elderly community in the country?
Yes po, Sir Chito. Very strong po no yung ating coordination and collaboration with this particular institution or office. In fact nga po no, with the creation nga of the National Commission for the Senior Citizens, mas nakikita po natin that the efforts will further be intensified in addressing the needs of this particular sector of the society. So, maayos naman po yung ating coordination with this particular office.
So, are you aware of any bill or movement in Congress to improve to amend the benefits are being received by these elderly now? Are you aware of any movement in Congress right now towards that end?
Well, yes, Sir Chito, one of which is the increase in the social pension nga po of our beneficiaries for the social pension for indigent senior citizens. Dahil alam naman po natin, no, Sir Chito, 500 pesos po ang tinatanggap monthly ating mga senior citizens under this program. And there had been moves to increase this particular amount. And the DSWD fully supports naman po dahil nire-recognize natin na yung pangangailangan nga po ng ating mga senior citizens.
Sinong champion dito sa House, ma'am? Who's the champion on the House on this bill?
Well, there are various bills Sir Chito, hindi lamang po sa House, no, gayon din po sa Senate.
Sa Senate, okay.
So hopefully, maipasa na nga po ito so that we could really help our senior citizens.
I mean, tulong na rin lang tayo. Let us be realistic with the help because at gaano ang increase mo from 500? I mean, how much would it be if ever that bill is enacted into a law? How would it be? How much would it be now? Anong proposed pension na matatanggap sa mga
yes, Sir Chito, magkakaiba nga po no ng kanila pong mga proposed increase in the amount. Meron po tayong mga nakita na double or triple the existing amount, but we leave it to our legislators to deliberate on the amount so that we could really come up with the realistic assistance for our beneficiaries.
But would the department have a study, considering that you are the department that is practically mandated to take care of the social benefits of the people? Do you have a study on how much is the realistic household assistance that you should give sa mga mahihirap to make it a real living assistance?
Well, we have submitted nga po no, our position paper supporting ito pong pagkakaroon ng increase. in the social pension of our beneficiaries to make to make it more responsive, realistic to the existing times, responsive to the needs of our beneficiaries.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
yes, ito naman po ay binase natin din doon sa ating mga isinagawa ng mga research or ating mga interviews with our beneficiaries, sir.
Okay. So, ballpark figure? No ballpark figure. Just at least give the elderly, give the poor a sense of hope.
Well, Sir Chito, definitely, no? Gaya nga po ng sinabi ko, definitely the DSWD supports any move that would increase ito pong tinatanggap ng ating mga beneficiaries.
Yeah,
The DSWD naman po will implement together with the local government units and then the National Commission for Senior Citizens any provision of the law that would say na dagdagan po natin itong pondo.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's just very enlightening session po natin. I learned a lot. We learned a lot. And I hope a lot of seniors will be enlightened because sa totoo lang, ma'am, pag bumibili akong gamot, pinapakita yung senior card, ang reklamo lagi, ito naman pension, di nga itong natatanggap pension sa SS or whatever, di kulang nga pambili ng gamot. Yun lang, it's really very enlightening to learn about the program. The department is really pushing right now. And I kudos to Secretary Bautista on that. At saka pangalawa, as you were saying earlier, you have the highest acceptance rating because you were never distracted. Maski binabatikos na kayo, you were never distracted. You were there all the time. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah. May follow-up lang ako na tanong. So we're talking about the living beneficiary. I'm just wondering kung meron kayong continuous study on beneficiaries na nawala na during the pandemic. Certain analysis were being done kung bakit sila namatay o maaga ba silang namatay, dapat ba na-prevent, yung mga ganun, para meron kayong pwedeng actions later on to improve situation if needed.
Well, Sir John, if we are referring to our social pension for indigent senior citizens, at present, no, I will have to check with our PDPB, our policy planning bureau, of if there is an existing study on that. But definitely, kapag meron naman po tayong natanggap na reports that meron po tayong mga senior citizens or existing beneficiaries who have passed on, at tinitingnan po natin, no, yung slot that may be given to another senior citizens who is online or on queue na mapabilang rin po datin sa ating mga programa. But certainly, we will check on the study kung meron pong ganyang pong isinagawa.
Oo. Ma'am, aside from the mga social, do you also have programs para dun sa mga, as you were saying, indigent talaga, zero income, for their final arrangements in case they pass on to the second stage of life?
Well, yes, Sir Chito, meron po tayo under the assistance to individuals in crisis situation, no? Sabi ko nga po, meron tayong medical, may financial, meron din po tayong burial assistance.
Oh.
So kung indigent families na kinakailangan po ng tulong hinggil dito, we encourage them to get in touch with the nearest field office para po magkaroon tayo ng assessment. And then the necessary assistance will be provided.
But that kind of help would be in the form of services, it's not monetary help. It's services.
It's monetary also, Sir Chito. So kung magkano po yung kinakailangan na babayaran natin doon sa funeral parlor, tumutulong po si DSWD on that. And if we need to transport, yung pong core ay ginagawa rin po natin. Kung halimbawa, nandito siya sa National Capital Region at request po ng pamilya na iuwi sa kanilang probinsya, tayo rin naman po ay tumutulong.
Oh, really? Okay. So, the department covers the costs?
Yes, sir.
Walang cap, I mean, no matter what the cost, or there is a certain cap on that?
Well, this is based on the assessment to be conducted by our social workers, sir.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So, a lot, ngayon, at least mga senior, alam natin kung ano yung, kasi the reality talaga, ma'am, you really need to help the elderly. The department really has, especially Kasi yung indigent na category nyo, ma'am, na zero income, medyo it's no longer a reality. Off to reality na yan eh.
Well, yes, Sir Tito. Sabi ko nga po, no, tayo naman po nakikipag-ugnayan sa ating
Yeah.
mga legislators so that the necessary amendment naman po will be done doon sa ating mga existing na batas. Because the DSWD naman po is just implementing what is
Yes, I
stated.
know. Kaya nga, pardon, excuse me for asking kung how is our party list representative coordinating with you? Because they're supposed to be the front line of legislation, because everything will start with the law, with a bill, and later on enacted into a law. That everything would start at the House or at the Senate. So I'm calling on our legislators at both houses of Congress, the upper and the lower. Tulungan nyo naman ang mga senior na hindi na makalabas, hindi pa makadiskarte. I mean, those are realities that they have. But I hope that since it's a pre-election mode, finally the seniors will have a voice. Kaya lang maliit na lang yata ang voting population natin. We're being nadideplete tayo every day. So again, thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, Ma'am Irene. That was very enlightening session. And
Indeed.
if we will have questions on that regard through Facebook, is it okay? Can we communicate with you directly, Ma'am Irene, on some concerns that would be kasi kami we're open to questions sa Facebook even after this session.
Yes, sir.
Clarifications on that
Sir
regard.
John. Certainly po, you may get in touch with me directly or through my office, yung social marketing service, so that we could address naman po, we could help you address the concerns of the public po.
Or can we refer them to you? John, can you post
or
our
if you can share some links later on that we can include in this posting, that will be very helpful to our listeners, our viewers.
Sige po, Sir John and Sir Chito. I'll provide you my email address so that you could also send it through that platform.
Again, so much. Well, so much. Thank you so much for spending time with us. I know meron kang kabilang Zoom meeting kanina, but we really appreciate for your time, ma'am. So any parting words, ma'am, that from your end?
Yes, Sir Chito and Sir John, again, we would like to thank you for inviting us in your program. Sir Chito mentioned earlier something about yung mga batikos o yung pagpupuna. Gusto lamang pong naming banggitin sa DSWD na ito pong mga natanggap namin na mga pagbabatikos o yung mga pagpupuna has not actually stopped us from delivering the needed assistance to the poor, the vulnerable, and the marginalized. It has in fact inspired us and motivated us to further our efforts. Alam naman po natin na hindi rin po perpekto ang ating mga sistema, ang ating mga proseso, but with the observations, the comments, and the recommendations that we have received from all our stakeholders, kami po ay natututo to improve on how we deliver the needed services to our publics or to our beneficiaries. And in fact, kami nga po ay nagpapasalamat at pinapaabot ninyo ito sa amin so that we could really look into how we perform and how we deliver our respective tasks. Again, nagpapasalamat ang DSWD sa buong tiwala at pagsusuporta po ng publiko sa ahensya. Makakaasa po kayo na magpapatuloy ang DSWD ng pagbibigay ng maagap, mapagkalingang serbisyong walang puwang sa katiwalian. Magandang umaga po at maraming salamat.
Thank you, Ma'am Irene. John, do you have any parting words before we wind up this live stream?
Yes, I would just like to thank the DSWD for their continued effort. More power to you, ma'am, sa inyong organization. Maraming salamat po.
Okay. And finally, in closing, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, mga kababayan natin sa buong mundo, mga Pilipino. Alam mo, itong panahon ng pandemya, ang hindi natin iniisip na problema ay ngayon lang ito lumulutang. There are a lot of issues and concerns na only lumabas dahil sa pandemya. And it's a good thing that ang DSWD is there to help the poor, the marginalized, and the vulnerable sector. And again, ako naman, I'd like to express my my concerns as an elderly, that sana we will have a better, the elderly sana bigyan ng mas magandang pagkakataon dito sa because we are the most vulnerable sector in the pandemic nito. So again, Ma'am Irene, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very
And
much.
please extend our thanks to Secretary Bautista for being sensitive to issues affecting the vulnerable, and most importantly, para at least for being giving time even to a small group like us, kami ni John Jan, because what is important right now is tulong tayo lahat. Whatever little help we can do to help the government, i-welcome yan. Welcome. Thank you so much, Ma'am Irene.
Thank you
Okay.
so much.